Yo, what's up? Hey, welcome, man. Welcome back. Sorry it's been so long, man. It's been a minute. Gonna try to make these a little bit more frequent and try to go through the entire catalog of music that I possess. But this is what I like to call another segment of what I like to call um, um, history through music. And it's basically, I'm just gonna break down some songs that I wrote about different historical figures, different historical topics. Break down the lyrics, break down the song and what I was talking about, and some of my lyrical choices to depict some of these stories. Um, but right now we're gonna be doing the Napoleon album that I just wrote, called "The Sword and the Scepter," and so yeah, that's my latest album. And the last song that I broke down, "Grave of the Exile," um, is um, the song that actually comes after this song. But today's song is a song called "Have You Ever." So without further ado, let's just get into it.
Raise an army in defense, the motivation, protect the empire now, the conversation. Left so many souls in the snows of Russia, the tormented faces of the soldiers haunt us. Raise our army in defense, for they pursue, stands blood inside the water from the empire's womb. But he won't bend the knee, still master on land, muster up the forces to contest, don't understand.
So this song is about basically the last stand of Napoleon after his unsuccessful invasion of Russia and subsequent retreat, which was a disaster. And after the Battle of the Nations, also known as the Battle of Leipzig, where he was defeated by the Sixth Coalition. This is basically Napoleon's last stand to protect Paris. He knew he had to go back to Paris. He had to raise a new army, basically, because he lost a lot of good soldiers, a lot of veterans in the Russian campaign, the failed Russian campaign. So he had to go back to Paris and raise basically a new army. Um, and yeah, so this song is talking about this whole campaign where Napoleon is basically fighting off the coalition as they're descending upon Paris.
An army of conscripts led by the old guard. Doom is hovering like an eagle in the fog. The allies they invade France, headed towards Paris. Napoleon will strike out with fervor, fighting hellish. A brilliant campaign, he will waste till in his prime. He won't abdicate his enemies, draw the line. The French won't return to pre-revolution borders. His army won't cower, only death can say it's over.
So he goes back to raise an army of conscripts. He still did possess, at this time, his old guard. The old guard, the French old guard, the Imperial old guard, those were like his elite troops. Those were his most veteran troops. Those were the guys who had been through him through basically all his battles, everything that up until this point. So these guys were grizzled old veterans, man. They've seen it all, they've been through it all. But they were infused with a bunch of inexperienced youngins, basically. But it basically came down to they wanted Napoleon, they wanted the French to give up territory, their pre-revolution borders, that basically give up all their territories that they acquired during Napoleon's reign. And of course, they didn't. The French didn't want to do that. Napoleon didn't want to do that, of course. So, um, during this uh, time period, it's like a lot of yeah, there's a lot of devastation, a lot of battles, and it's fighting. It's a lot of desperation, and so that's what this song is about. It's like this is it, man. This is his last thing.
Have you ever been to the battlefields that are at the end? Have you ever been to the end? Have you ever been to the battlefields that are at the end? Have you ever been to the end?
So, of course, it's just like I'm trying to like evoke like the spirit of what it must have been like asking the question, have you ever been to the battlefields that are at the end? And it's like you haven't gone through the things that we gone through. We've been through so much trying to not protect our empire, trying to advance our empire, and we lost. There's so many soldiers, lost, so many men lost, so much suffering, and so it's like you don't really know. So I was just trying to evoke that kind of spirit, that feeling of like you don't know what we've been through, and it's that feeling of that and the desperation that I'm really trying to convey.
Let's will advance towards Paris on the land between the Marne and the Seine. Outnumbered almost 4-1 with no fear. Napoleon closes in. What he faces here is Blucher and Schwarzenberg, the two armies separate yet again. Attacking at speed to split them up, nullifying quick the numbers that they send.
So all this takes place in between the rivers, the Marne and the Seine, and its tributaries. Now, the Marne and the Seine, it kind of represents like a pocket, and in between this pocket is all this land, and that's where all these battles took place. These little villages in between these two main rivers, that of course lead to Paris, and so yeah, that's what they're trying to protect, but they're up against two massive armies, the army of Blucher, who represents the Prussians, and the army of Bohemia, led by Schwarzenberg, who represents the Austrians. And yeah, they outnumbered the French almost 4-1, and yet Napoleon was able to fend them off for quite some time, and it just shows this man's military genius.
Snow dots the land, the roads turn to mud, massive armies move, concentrated, cumbersome. Napoleon's force, meanwhile, quickly advance towards Blucher and his men. Cut them off, there's no chance. Village after village, once again, staging battles where streets are decorated with the dead like their mantles. After suffering, both sides the same casualties. Blucher retreats for Schwarzenberg dramatically.
So the age-old mistake that the Allied coalitions continue to make again and again and again is that they split up their armies. So yes, they outnumbered the French, but they chose to split up their forces. So what does Napoleon do with his corps system that can move at speed and under various marshals? Well, he just attacks each army individually as they're split up and defeats one, and then he turns and goes after the other. The Allies, for whatever reason, continue to make this same mistake all the way up until Waterloo. Now, the idea for Napoleon is that he wants to defeat these two armies before they can join up and bring their numbers to bear. But obviously, the conditions during this time, this is beyond campaign season. They're starting to snow. it's the muddy season in Europe. So now, you know, your horses, your baggage trains are now trotting through mud and becoming mired in it, making everything that much more difficult. And once again, the brutality of these battles, the brutality of all this is um, displayed. And like I said, in the lyric is that the streets are decorated with the dead like their mantles, because it's almost become, it's like a morbid decoration at this point. It's like they're so used to death, they're so used to suffering. These battles are incredibly devastating and destructive. And yeah, this is the stage that is set for this epic clash, this last stand of Napoleon.
You ever been to the battlefields that are at the end? Have you ever been to the end? Have you ever been to the battlefields that are at the end? Have you ever been to the end? The Allied advance is split along the two rivers, advancing different speeds, ultimately so foolish. Napoleon has north to confront aggressive Luca, clashing winning victories, all along pursuing duels. Marshal Grouchy to smash them in their flank and cut them down ruthlessly as they retreat down the bank. This six-day campaign, Napoleon wins 4 battles, outnumbered but inflicting heavy casualties to rattle.
So during this, it's known as the Six-Day Campaign, Napoleon manages to win 4 major battles against the Allies. Because, like I said, they were stubborn and they chose to keep their massive armies split. Napoleon took advantage of this, using his corps, using Marshal Grouchy and other marshals to basically harass the Prussians, to harass the Austrians, and basically make their life hell. And then he would swoop in and make the decisive blows, and he won 4 battles in 6 days. Now, a lot of historians, you know, crown Napoleon as one of the military geniuses in history, and a lot of historians agree that this particular sequence, um, these his last stand, basically protecting Paris. This particular sequence, this 6-day campaign, is a true illustration of his military genius, because of the odds, because of the circumstances, because he just lost so many good soldiers, yet he was still able to fend off an enemy that had overwhelming numbers. And yeah, it was embarrassing for the Allies.
In between the Marne and Seine, fighting for existence, tell me, where have you been? Have you been to Russia? Have you seen the men frozen? Have you been to lights and seen the crows spit the fallen? Have you been? Have you been in between the Marne and Seine, where all of this ends? In between the Marne and Seine, fighting for existence, tell me, where have you been? Have you been to Russia? Have you seen the men frozen? Have you been to lights and seen the crows pick the fallen? Have you been? Have you been in between the Marne and Seine, where all of this ends?
So the the little hook here, I'm basically, like I said, it's just like asking the question: have you ever been where we've been? Have you walked the miles? Have you you haven't, basically. It's basically like saying you haven't been where we've been. Have you been to Russia? Have you seen the men frozen? Have you been to Leipzig? Seen the crows pick the fallen? This is the journey that Napoleon's empire has faced and endured in their retreat from Russia through the Battle of the Nations and all the way back to defend Paris. And all along the way, they left countless souls laying in these villages in between the river, the Marne, and the Seine, but also throughout the rest of Europe and into Russia. It's a trail of bodies, a trail of suffering. So that's kind of what we're trying to, what I was trying to convey. And it's really no pretty way of saying it.
However, to the south, the army of Bohemia is moving. Marshals dead, can't stop the movement. Napoleon moves at speed to reinforce. At the word of this, the Allies move back. Of course, Napoleon positions the cannon himself. When it's done in victories, that time will only tell. Blucher on the move again, heading towards Paris. So Napoleon moves rapidly again, marching reckless.
So yeah, it's like they continue to fight this battle, and the army of Bohemia, led by Schwarzenberg, they're making moves, and Napoleon's marshals are now failing to hold up their end of the bargain. So things are starting to finally collapse in on Napoleon's defense. And yeah, I mean, like, he's doing the best he can, but unfortunately for him, they were running out of resources, running out of men, and you know how they say, like, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. But unfortunately, Napoleon couldn't clone himself, so he was stuck with other men helping him, and they weren't able to necessarily operate at the level that he was operating at.
Between the Marne and Seine, fighting for existence, tell me, where have you been? Have you been to Russia? Have you seen the men frozen? Have you been to life and seen the crows pick the fallen? Have you been? Have you been? In between the Marne and Seine, where all of this ends. In between the Marne and Seine, fighting for existence, tell me, where have you been? Have you been to Russia? Have you seen the men frozen? Have you been to lights and seen the crows pick the fallen? Have you been? Have you been? In between the Marne and Seine, where all of this ends. In pursuit of Blucher, through the north, the Allied armies push back again. But really, how much longer can keep this up? Suffering, losses can't pretend. We need the French citizens to fight back invaders, but they just desperately want peace. The Cossacks loot and pillage, and yet it seems no resistance from the people in the streets. Betrayal in the air, this is deep treachery. The Allies learn Napoleon's plans from none other than the diplomats, how they run. So to Paris, all their armies can advance.
So basically, like I said, Napoleon's keeping up the defense the best he can. And his plan is to move out and strike these armies and to deplete them and to basically just slowly pick away at them. But his plan is taking him away from Paris. That was his plan. Now, Napoleon had a famous diplomat in his cabinet, a man by the name of Talleyrand. Talleyrand, for various reasons, betrayed Napoleon to the Allied command, and he let it be known Napoleon's intentions and his plans. And once the Allies learned of Napoleon's plans, they realized that he was in no position to actually defend Paris. And so they could take their forces and just go. What's holding us back? Let's go. Let's go to Paris, because Paris is the prize. We take Paris, we cut out all his. He has no more power. And so that's basically what they did. The other factor in all this is the French civilians, the French population. Napoleon wanted them to show a little resistance to the invading Allied forces, but the French civilians were tired of war at this point. They were tired of Napoleon at this point, you can say, and they were just tired of fighting and sending their sons to die. So they basically didn't resist, much to Napoleon's chagrin. And yeah, that's how that went down. And it really just signified, like, yeah, this is probably it.
Have you ever been? Have you ever been to the end? To the mind and the sin? Have you ever been to the end? The end. Napoleon tries to attack behind that line, trying to rally more places, garrisons to his cause. Meanwhile, his corps are being routed, pushed back, falling back to Paris. Now hope sees the lack. The mighty ancient city has a meager garrison to fend off the might of combined coalition. The only thing to do is surrender. It would see Napoleon's family evacuated from the scene.
So things were basically starting to collapse. Napoleon really he was trying to go behind enemy lines, reach some of the garrisons that he had scattered across Europe, and rally these soldiers to his cause to swell his numbers so that he could swing around and attack. But it was taking too long, and he was, like I said, overextended. And the Allies knew this. So they just full steam went towards Paris. Paris didn't have much of a garrison to speak of. Most of those troops Napoleon took with him to go, to go attack. So the forces that were left to defend Paris were just easily overtaken. Now, back in the capital, Napoleon had left his family and his new Austrian wife, not Josephine, but his new wife that he married, who was an Austrian princess, who gave him a son. So his wife and his young son were back in Paris. They were evacuated from the city during this part of the campaign when all hope seemed lost. And Napoleon would never see them again. This is mainly because his wife was an Austrian princess. And Austria hated Napoleon. Now, why they agreed to let her marry in, there was a lot of diplomatic BS going on. But basically, she never really liked him. Obviously, Austria was more than happy to take her back with his son. It's kind of the ultimate FU to Napoleon. Napoleon really didn't care much about his wife, per se, losing her, per se. But it was his son that he really, really, that stung. Because it was not only his son, it was his heir, So, yeah. But basically, it was looking really grim at this point. And I think, so Napoleon had to head back towards Paris, knowing that all this was going down, and a lot of his marshals were also giving up the fight.
The thing. Have you ever been to the end? To the mind and the sin? Have you ever been to the end? The end. Napoleon rushes back to hear of the surrender, puts his head in his hands. Now he'll be forced to abdicate the throne. He's compelled by his men. Have you ever seen how a ruler will fall? How a general descends? Have you ever marched into exile, thinking this can't be the end, the end.
So Napoleon heads back towards Paris. He gets to the outskirts of he gets to a village that's near Paris. He's informed that the city had been captured and that a lot of his marshals that he trusted all surrendered. He didn't think that would happen. He was actually surprised. I mean, to the end, he thought he had a chance, but you know, it's pretty hard to give up when you know the stakes. He was basically ultimately compelled to surrender and also to abdicate. And yeah, I mean, he had to be convinced and compelled by his men. They told him, "Look, you have to give it up. It's over." So he abdicated, and then he was also exiled, and he was sent to the island of Elba. Now, as we know, that was not his end. Okay, he would return, and I did a breakdown of my song called "Grave of the Exile," which talks all about that, which led to the Battle of Waterloo, and his ultimate final defeat, which was the Battle of Waterloo. So yeah, but yeah, that's how it all went down. And this song is the end of this song is basically um, his first exile, and he gets sent to the island of Elba.
The end. The end. The end.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, that concludes the breakdown of the song "Have You Ever" by yours truly, Warwolf X. You can hear the full song, without my commentary. Just visit my channel, Warwolf X, which is linked to this channel. Yeah, but we'll go ahead and we'll break down some more songs soon. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Hope y'all learned some stuff. And yeah, remember, history is important. My goal is to keep history alive through music. And yeah, y'all can help me do that by subscribing to the channel. And you go ahead and like and comment as well, so you can join the discussions and stuff. If you have anything else to add about all this, feel free. If you have any questions or any corrections, also feel free. Um, Appreciate it very much. But yeah, until next time, my friends, uh, take care of each other and stay safe and stay epic. We out.